You know that feeling when the room is full of laughter and warmth, but you're the only one who can taste the frost in the air. That's how it always feels with Serena. On the surface, she's flawless. Shimmering blonde hair, designer heels clicking like a metronome of control, a smile that never quite reaches her eyes. People love her. They see what she wants them to see. What they don't see is the way she looks at me. Her mother-in-law, like I'm a stain on her perfect linen tablecloth. We were at the Crystal Pines Country Club, the kind of place where even the staff speak in hushed tones, so as not to disturb the illusion of wealth and elegance. It was Noah's Knight, my grandson. He had just graduated at the top of his Yale law class, and I couldn't have been prouder. He was sitting beside me, his suit tailored but modest, the same boy who'd spent his summers lugging lumber on construction sites to help with tuition. Grandma. Did you see Dean Hollister tear up when I gave my speech? He whispered, eyes sparkling like when he was a child, showing me his first report card. I smiled at him, my hand resting over his. I did, sweetheart. Your grandfather would have been so proud. And then I felt it. The air around us shift, a deliberate theatrical clearing of the throat. Serena stood up slowly, her wineglass catching the warm chandelier light like a weapon glinting before a strike. Oh, Clara. Please, she said, her voice slicing through the table's laughter like a shard of glass. Let's not pretend this is some heartwarming fairy tale success story. The clinking of cutlery stopped. Even the waiter paused mid-step. Marcus. My son looked up sharply. Serena. But she didn't let him finish. She tilted her head at me, her gaze dripping with the same disdain I'd seen so many times before, but never this publicly. For years I've put up with this charade. Your thrift store wardrobe, your awkwardness around people who matter. You embarrass me, Clara. Every single time. Noah's hand stiffened in mine. His face went pale, confused, wounded. Around us, I could feel the ripple of Curiosity Club members, all perfectly polite, but hungry for gossip, like vultures circling something freshly wounded. I kept my voice quiet. Serena. This isn't the time. Oh no. It's exactly the time. She leaned closer so only our table could hear, though her voice carried just enough for half the dining room to catch the words. You disgust me. I hate that you're part of my family. The room went silent. You could have heard a single drop of champagne hit the tablecloth. I looked down at my navy dress. Conservative, appropriate. I'd even worn the pearl earrings my late husband gave me on our 30th anniversary, hoping maybe tonight she'd keep the peace for Noah's sake. But this wasn't about a dress. It never was. I could feel Marcus's panic, his eyes darting between his wife and me, silently begging for the moment to pass. I could see Noah's confusion turning to anger, his knuckles white around his water glass. But me, I didn't flinch. Not anymore. I just smiled. A small, quiet smile that wasn't for her. It was for me. For the months I'd been waiting for this exact moment. I lifted my hand slightly and caught the eye of Julian, the head waiter, who had been in on my plan from the beginning. He nodded once and moved toward the sound system. The soft jazz music faded. And then the giant flat screen on the far wall, usually displaying club announcements, flickered to life with a very different image. Serena's face appeared on screen. Not the polished socialite face she wore tonight, but the cold, detached expression of a woman sitting in a lawyer's office 6 months ago. Marcus's fork slipped from his hand with a soft clang. Serena's wineglass tipped slightly, trembling between her fingers, and her recorded voice filled the dining room clear as crystal. I want her completely out of my life. As far as I'm concerned, I never had a daughter. The room erupted in gasps. Serena froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. And me? I sat perfectly still, my smile just a touch wider, because this was only the beginning. You know what the hardest part of surviving someone like Serena is? It's not the insults. It's the way they make you question yourself. For years, I told myself maybe I was too plain. Maybe I did say the wrong things at the wrong time. Maybe the problem was me. But then little things started to not add up. It was last winter, the day of that ridiculous charity brunch Serena chaired. She was late, which was unlike her. And when she finally swept in 3 hours late, her hair was perfect, her smile flawless. But there was a flicker in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Something sharp, something unsettled. Later that week, my neighbour Judith mentioned she'd seen Serena downtown. Weird, Judith had said casually over coffee. She was coming out of Monroe and Lane. You know, the family law office. Family law Serena would rather walk barefoot over glass than involve herself with anything that didn't make her look glamorous. And she sure didn't volunteer at any legal aid clinics. I couldn't shake it. That's how the thought started a small itch at the back of my mind. Why was she there? So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Leo Barnes. He was an old friend of my late husband's, a private investigator who'd been in the business long enough to know when not to ask too many questions. When Leo arrived, he was quiet professional. He opened his worn leather briefcase on my kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught Marcus to do his homework, and warned me gently, "Clara, once you see what I find, you can't unsee it." I told him the truth. I was tired of living in a beautiful lie. 3 weeks later, he came back. I still remember the way he hesitated before he slid the folder toward me. "There's more than you asked for," he said softly. I opened it. The first page was a court document, petition for termination of parental rights. Voluntary surrender. My eyes blurred. Serena had another child. A daughter. Her name was Ava Reynolds. She'd been 15 when Serena signed the papers. 15. Old enough to know what abandonment feels like. Too young to survive it alone. I flipped through page after page details about Ava being left with an elderly grandmother who died just 2 years later. A note about her aging out of foster care with no family support. Then came the social worker's report. Ava had been a good student. No behavioral problems. Worked part-time to help her grandmother with bills. So why Leo answered before I even asked? Because Ava was starting to ask questions about her father, about Serena's past. She was becoming inconvenient. I remember gripping the edge of the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. And then Leo pulled out a USB drive. There's video. I watched it that night, alone in my living room. There was Serena, sitting in a sleek law office, her expression cool, detached. The lawyer asked, "Are you sure you want to permanently sever your parental rights? No contact, no support?" And Serena's voice, so calm, so deliberate, filled the room. "Yes. I want a clean slate. Tell her I'm dead." I felt physically ill. I thought of Noah, the way Serena paraded him around like a trophy. Would he always matter? Or would he become disposable the moment he stopped being useful to her image? I thought of Marcus, my son, who believed his wife was the perfect partner. What would it do to him to know he'd married someone capable of erasing her own child like she was deleting an old email? And most of all, I thought of Ava, a girl who believed her mother was dead. A girl who had to build a life from ashes without even the faint hope of a phone call or a letter. That night, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't confront Serena in private. No, that would give her time to spin her lies. People like her always twist the truth until it sounds like they're the victim. I would wait. I would gather every document, every shred of evidence. I would put the truth in front of her and everyone who ever believed her polished act. And when the time was right, I would let her destroy herself with her own words. This was no longer about me and Serena. It was about Ava. It was about Marcus. It was about Noah. And it was about finally showing Serena that I was not the timid woman she thought she could humiliate forever. In the weeks that followed, I quietly prepared. Julian, the head waiter at the country club, agreed to help me set up the video. Leo gave me copies of every document. I memorized every detail of Serena's betrayal. I didn't sleep much. But for the first time in years, I felt calm. Because I knew. I knew her perfect little empire was built on a rotting foundation. And I was going to be the one to crack it open. The moment the screen flickered on the dining room transformed. It was no longer a place of quiet congratulations and polite laughter. It became a stage. Serena's face stared back at herself from the massive flat screen, but not the Serena everyone here knew, the glossy, self-assured socialite. No, this Serena had a harder edge. The timestamp in the corner of the video read 6 months ago. The lawyer's voice echoed through the sound system, clear and precise. So, you want to permanently sever your parental rights. You understand this is final, correct? Serena froze mid-breath. Her wine glass slipped from her hand, tipping sideways on the white tablecloth, leaving a spreading stain of deep red. Yes. Her own recorded voice replied, calm. Cold. I want a clean slate. No contact, no visitation, nothing. As far as I'm concerned, I never had a daughter. Gasps rippled through the room. I watched Serena turn pale, her perfectly painted lips parting like she was searching for oxygen. What is this? Marcus whispered. His voice tight. I don't. Serena stammered, shaking her head like she could deny what her own voice was saying. From the screen, the lawyer continued. And if she tries to reach you in the future, tell her I'm dead. The video, Serena said flatly. And just like that, the room erupted. Chairs scraped back. Conversations broke out in hushed, frantic tones. People turned to one another, their faces split between shock and morbid curiosity. I stayed seated, calm, still. My hand rested lightly on Noah's. Mum. Marcus's voice was trembling now, his gaze darting between the screen and his wife. You have a daughter? Serena's mask cracked. Marcus? It's not what it looks like. You don't understand. Noah pushed his chair back, his eyes wide with disbelief. A daughter. You told your own kid you were dead. She was troubled. Serena blurted, her voice rising in pitch. She rejected me. She didn't want my help. You don't know what it was like back then. No. I cut in quietly. My voice didn't need volume. It carried because the room had fallen silent again, waiting to see what would happen next. She was 15, and she had no one but an elderly grandmother who died 2 years later. Do you know where she is now, Serena? Serena's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single photo, sliding it across the table with deliberate care. It was a picture of Ava in her security guard uniform, leaving work at 3 a.m., looking exhausted, but determined. She works 2 jobs to put herself through community college, I said softly. She lives in a studio apartment that eats up most of her paycheck. She has no family because you made sure she couldn't find you, because you didn't want her interfering with your new life. Serena's hands started to shake. You erased her. Noah said, his voice cracking in a way I hadn't heard since he was a little boy. You erased your own kid like she was nothing. I was protecting her. Serena shot back, a note of hysteria creeping into her voice. It was better for her this way. A clean break. No. I met her eyes steadily. You were protecting yourself. Ava was inconvenient. She didn't fit into the perfect picture you were creating here. Marcus finally spoke, his tone quiet but searing. She was 15, Serena. 15. From the screen, the lawyer's recorded voice echoed one last time. So we'll include the clause preventing any future contact. And Serena's recorded voice sealed her fate, completely certain. Tell her I'm dead. You could feel the weight of it sink into every person in that room. Someone gasped audibly. Even Julian the waiter froze mid-step, his tray of champagne flutes trembling. Marcus stood slowly, his movements stiff, mechanical. He looked at Serena with an expression I had never seen on my son's face before. Not anger, not hurt, just a hollow, cold recognition of the truth. You lied to me, he said quietly. Marcus. You lied to Noah, to everyone. Serena reached for him, but he stepped back. Noah, Marcus said, his voice heavy. Son, let's go. Noah hesitated, his eyes darting between his parents, but then he nodded silently and stood. Panic flashed in Serena's eyes. She turned toward me, desperation spilling over into rage. You think you've won something here, Clara? You think humiliating me makes you some kind of hero? I rose from my seat, slow and deliberate. I didn't destroy your marriage, Serena. I said, my voice calm and steady. I just made sure Marcus knew who he was really married to. Serena's face twisted, her perfect composure gone. For the first time, she looked small, fragile, defeated. As Marcus and Noah walked toward the exit, the entire dining room parted like the Red Sea giving them space. Whispers followed them, echoing like 1,000 tiny knives. I picked up my bag and followed. But just before I left, I turned back one last time. Serena was still standing there, frozen in place. Mascara smudged, staring blankly at the screen, now looping back to the club's event calendar, as if nothing had happened. And I thought, this is only the beginning. She's not the type to accept defeat quietly. I knew she'd fight back. People like Serena always do. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. Because the truth was out. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It started with a call from Marcus's sister Ellen, who lived 3 states away. Her voice was tight, uncertain. Mum, Serena called me this morning. She said you ambushed her, that you hired someone to dig into her past just to humiliate her in front of everyone. She was crying. She said you're trying to destroy her marriage because you've never accepted her. I gripped the phone tighter. Did she tell you why I showed that video? Ellen hesitated. She said it was out of context, that the girl was troubled, that she had no choice. I closed my eyes. Serena was moving fast. By noon, I'd heard from 2 cousins, and even Judith, my neighbor. The script was the same. Each time Serena painting herself as a misunderstood victim, implying I was jealous and vindictive, telling anyone who'd listen that the story about Ava was complicated and more nuanced than Clara made it seem. This was Serena's gift. She didn't just lie. She rewrote history in real time. And she knew how to play her audience. She'd call with a shaky voice, maybe sprinkle in a few tears. And suddenly she wasn't a cruel manipulator. She was the poor wife being tormented by her controlling mother-in-law. I knew this tactic well. Manipulators don't stop when exposed. They double down. What hurt wasn't the lies. It was how quickly some people wanted to believe them. Even Marcus called later that day, his voice strained and weary. Mum, I don't know what to think right now. Marcus, you saw the video. You heard her say it. I know. But she's saying Ava was in a bad place. That she, Marcus. I cut him off gently. She was 15. She had no one. That's the only truth that matters. There was a long silence. I just need time, he said finally. I understood. Serena had wrapped herself around his life for 15 years. Untangling that wouldn't happen overnight. But as the day dragged on, more cracks began to show. Judith came by that evening, her curiosity barely disguised. She sat at my kitchen table sipping tea, her words carefully chosen. "I've known Serena a long time, Clara, but I've never seen her rattled like that. I don't know if she can recover from this socially." I almost laughed. Socially? For Serena, reputation was oxygen. Without it, she'd suffocate. Meanwhile, Noah called from Marcus's house. His voice was heavier than I'd ever heard it. "Grandma." Dad's barely talking. He's just sitting in the den, staring at nothing. Serena keeps pacing the house, muttering about lawyers. She says she's going to fix this. "Stay close to your father," I told him. "He needs someone he trusts right now." Because I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, the following day, Serena made her first counterattack. She posted a long, dramatic message on social media, carefully curated to tug at heartstrings. It was filled with vague references to betrayal, family conflict, and the pain of having private matters exploited by those who can't move on from the past. She didn't mention Ava by name, of course. She never gave enough detail for people to fact-check, just enough for her friends to comment. "Stay strong, Serena. You're such a good mom and wife, don't let the haters get you down." It was nauseating to watch. But I didn't respond. Not publicly, not yet. Instead, I kept gathering information. I asked Leo to continue monitoring Serena, just in case she tried anything else. Because if I'd learned anything over the years, it was this: people like Serena never accept defeat gracefully. They look for leverage. And if they can't find it, they create it, sure enough. 2 days later, my youngest daughter, Kate, called from Boston. Her tone was sharp defensive. "Mum, what's going on?" "Serena says you've been trying to turn the whole family against her. She said you're jealous because she and Dad are happy." I sat down heavily on my garden bench. The early evening light was soft and golden, but I felt the familiar chill settle in my bones. "Kate," I said carefully. "She has another daughter, a daughter she abandoned at 15. I have the court documents, I have the video. This isn't jealousy, it's the truth." There was a long pause. "That seems extreme," Kate said finally. "Are you sure you're not misunderstanding something?" And there it was. The seed Serena had planted had already taken root. I hung up the phone, staring at the roses in my garden, and realized something chilling. Exposing the truth wasn't enough. With people like Serena, the truth was just one piece of the battle. The real war was for credibility, and Serena was already trying to burn mine to the ground. It was a quiet evening, the kind of stillness that comes after a storm. I was in the kitchen stirring a pot of soup for one when the doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer. Lately, every unexpected knock felt like trouble. But when I opened the door, I froze. She was standing there, small and pale, with a worn backpack slung over her shoulder. She couldn't have been more than 23, but there was something in her eyes, something older, a tired strength that reminded me too much of Marcus after his father died. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked softly. "My name is Ava Reynolds." For a moment, my legs actually went weak. The name I'd only ever seen in court documents, in social worker reports, in a single photo Leo had handed me months ago, was suddenly a living, breathing person standing on my porch. "I think," she said, shifting her weight nervously, "we need to talk." I stepped aside without a word, motioning her in. She glanced around my modest home, nothing like the curated perfection of Serena's house, and sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Leo had shown me the truth about her. I poured her a cup of coffee, my hands trembling. She wrapped her fingers around the mug like she was trying to warm herself. "I found out someone was asking about me. A man named Leo Barnes." I blinked. Of course. Portland was a small enough city. Even discreet inquiries can ripple. At first I thought it was some scam, she continued, but then someone I used to know recognized him and told me he'd been hired by a woman here. Your name came up, so I drove down. She paused, studying my face. Why were you looking for me? I sat down across from her. For a moment, I couldn't find my voice. There was so much I wanted to say. But where do you start with a girl who's been erased by her own mother? Because you deserve to know the truth, I said finally. And because my grandson, your half-brother, deserves to know you exist. Her face flickered. Hope pain, I couldn't tell. Half-brother. Yes. His name is Noah. He's 22, just graduated law school. He doesn't know about you. Ava looked down, blinking rapidly. She stayed quiet for a long moment before speaking, her voice quieter now. I spent 3 years thinking she was dead. My stomach tightened. When I aged out of foster care, I hired a private investigator with money I'd saved from my first job, she said. He came back and told me my mother had died in a car accident. He even showed me a death certificate. I grieved for her. I went to therapy. I tried to accept it. But she wasn't dead, was she? No. My voice cracked. She paid someone to make sure you could never find her, so she could start over. Ava's laugh was hollow, bitter. Cheaper than child support, I guess. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I stopped myself. She wasn't ready for comfort from a stranger, even if that stranger was technically family. I showed the truth to your mother, I said instead. In front of everyone, at Noah's graduation dinner. She couldn't deny it. But she's still trying to spin it. Still lying to everyone who'll listen. Ava stared at me with a quiet, fierce determination. I want to meet them. Who my brother, my stepfather, everyone who was part of this fake life she built. I want them to hear it from me, to see me standing there, alive. I want her lies to fall apart in the one place she can't talk her way out of it, right in front of her perfect little family. I hesitated. Ava, Serena has been poisoning the narrative for weeks. She'll have an explanation ready. She always does. Then let her explain it. Ava said simply, while I'm standing right there to contradict every word. There was something about the way she said it, quiet, calm, but unshakable, that made me realize Ava wasn't just here for revenge. She wasn't here for closure either. She was here to protect a brother she'd never even met. She needs to know she can't do to him what she did to me, Ava said softly. He deserves to know who she really is. I nodded slowly. There's a family barbecue this Saturday, I said. It's supposed to be a healing gathering after the dinner incident. I almost laughed at the absurdity of that word, healing. Ava straightened. Take me with you. I studied her. She was wearing a simple blue dress, clean but clearly second-hand. Her hair was neat but unstyled. She didn't look like someone who wanted to cause a scene. She looked like someone who just wanted to finally exist. Yes, I said finally. I'll take you. Because sometimes the only way to fight a lie is to drag the truth into the same room and let it speak for itself. The sky was grey and heavy with that damp kind of stillness that settles over Chicago in early spring. Ava and I sat in my car for a full minute after parking in front of Marcus and Serena's immaculate suburban home. Through the large bay window, I could see movement. Marcus setting up a grill on the back patio. Noah laughing at something with his girlfriend Jennifer. For a brief moment, the house looked like the picture-perfect family Serena had always wanted people to see. Ava smoothed her simple blue dress. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. I'm not sure I'm ready for this. No one would ever be ready for this, I admitted softly. But you don't have to do it alone. I'll be right there. She nodded once, exhaling like she was bracing for impact. I knocked on the door instead of using my old key. That was important, acknowledging that the dynamics had changed. When Marcus opened the door, His face went through 3 emotions in 5 seconds: surprise, confusion, and then something he tried to school into polite neutrality. "Mum, I wasn't sure you'd come. I brought someone I'd like you to meet," I said quietly, stepping aside. Marcus's eyes shifted to Ava, and his breath caught. He didn't say anything, but you could see it instantly, the family resemblance. She had the same warm brown eyes as Noah, the same subtle arch in the eyebrows that came from his side of the family. "This is Ava Reynolds," I said, "Serena's daughter." For a second, Marcus just stood there, stunned. From the kitchen came the clatter of glass breaking. Serena's voice floated out, falsely bright. "Marcus." "Who's at the door?" Ava stepped inside. The air in the room changed the second she crossed the threshold. Noah looked up from the living room couch, startled. He froze when his eyes met Ava's. It was like looking into a mirror tilted slightly to the past. "You're," he whispered. "Your sister," Ava said gently. "Half-sister, technically. But yes, I'm your sister." From the kitchen doorway, Serena appeared. Her smile brittle, her eyes wide. She held a dish towel in one hand, like she was mid-task, but the moment she saw Ava, the colour drained from her face. "No," Serena's voice was a whisper, trembling. "No, you can't be here." Ava didn't flinch. "Hello, Mum." Serena staggered back a step, shaking her head. This isn't what it looks like." "Marcus, she's not supposed to." Marcus turned toward his wife slowly, his face pale but composed. "Not supposed to." What Serena Ava's voice stayed calm, almost heartbreakingly soft. "You told me you were dead. You paid someone to make sure I couldn't find you. I spent 3 years grieving a mother who was still alive. And all this time, you were here, playing happy family." Noah stood up. His hands clenched at his sides. "Is this true?" he demanded, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard. "You told your own daughter you were dead." Serena opened and closed her mouth, searching for words. "She doesn't understand. She was troubled. She rejected me. No." Ava cut in. "I was 15. I was getting straight A's. I worked part-time to help Grandma pay for groceries. The only thing I did wrong was ask questions you didn't want to answer." Serena's eyes darted wildly, desperate for an ally. But Marcus wasn't moving. Noah's face was a mixture of hurt and disgust, and I just stood silently watching the house of cards collapse. "Explain it," Marcus said finally, his voice low, dangerous. "Explain how abandoning your kid and faking your own death was the right thing to do." And for the first time since I'd known Serena, she couldn't talk her way out. Her carefully rehearsed scripts didn't work with Ava standing there, living proof of the lie she'd built her entire life on. The silence in the living room was heavy enough to crush anyone's voice. Ava stood perfectly still, her posture straight, despite the tremor in her hands. Noah's expression shifted from shock to something harder: betrayal, etched into the lines of his face. Marcus just stared at Serena like he was seeing her for the first time in 15 years. Serena finally spoke, her voice splintering. "Marcus, please, you have to understand. I was young. I was scared. Ava was complicated. She was 15. Marcus said flatly, cutting her off. 15. "Don't you dare blame a child for what you did. I had to choose." Serena's voice rose desperate, shrill. "I had to choose between my past and my future. I wanted a better life." "For yourself," Marcus snapped. "Not for her. Not for anyone but you." Serena's mouth opened and closed like she was drowning. Her gaze darted to Noah, looking for an ounce of sympathy. But Noah's jaw tightened. "Was I ever safe?" Noah asked quietly. "Or were you just waiting for the day I became inconvenient too?" Serena stepped toward him, reaching out. "Noah, baby!" "You're different." No, he said sharply, stepping back. Don't call me that. Don't call me anything. She turned to me, next anger flaring in her eyes. This is your fault. You've been waiting for years to destroy me. You've been jealous since the day I married Marcus. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't destroy you, Serena. I just stopped protecting the lie you built for yourself. Ava finally spoke her tone. Calm, steady. I didn't come here for revenge. I came because my brother deserves to know the truth. And because I needed to look you in the eye one last time and let you know you didn't erase me. I'm still here. Serena's face crumpled a strange mix of fury and something that almost looked like shame. Almost. Marcus turned to his wife one last time. Get out! Serena blinked, stunned. What get? Out. This marriage is over. She tried to sputter some legal threat, but Marcus was ready. The prenup you insisted on works both ways. Fraud, misrepresentation of character. You don't get a cent. And just like that, the fight drained out of her. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands and left without another word. When the door shut behind her, the house felt lighter. Marcus sank onto the couch, running a hand over his face. Noah sat beside him silently. Ava hovered uncertainly near the doorway, unsure if she should stay. Sit down, Marcus said, finally, his voice softer now. Please. Ava hesitated, then joined them. Noah glanced at her, his voice quieter, but full of something new. Curiosity, maybe even relief. So, you're my sister, half-sister Ava corrected automatically, but her lips curved into the faintest smile. Sister Noah said firmly, the half doesn't matter. I watched them from the doorway, my heart swelling with something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. 6 months later, Ava had moved into a small apartment closer to us. Marcus was helping her finish school. Noah was helping her study for law school admissions, claiming he needed a study partner for the bar exam. And me. I was finally cooking Sunday dinner for a family that felt whole, not curated. As we sat around my dining table, Marcus, Noah, Ava, even Jennifer, I realized something important. Serena tried to erase a person to protect her perfect life. But the truth has a way of surviving, and sometimes it even brings back what you didn't know you were missing. Family isn't about the image you project. It's about the people who stay, even when the truth is messy. And sitting there with Ava, laughing softly at something Noah said, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the family Serena tried to build through lies. This was better. This was real.